And what we're going to discuss today is a topic called Cointelpro 2.3. And people might think it's crazy, but you know, there was an event that happened about 16 years and a month ago that made people, I guess, start forgetting about black people, you know, in a bad light. You know, like there was black comics talking about, yeah, I can get on an airplane now. I can go to the store now, you know, because I'm not being watched as much anymore because of 9/11, you know. So there was a report that came out, FBI report. It came out actually the 3rd of August, but it just came out this past week about, you know, the black identity extremists and, you know, this is the new domestic terrorist. Disregarding that, I think 95% of the police killed by citizens or whatever, 95% of the people killing police are not black. Just leave it like that. I'm going to read some of this report here, and it says, this is the 11th of October, 2017 from Fox News, Elizabeth Llorente. Amid a rancorous debate over whether the Trump administration has downplayed the threat posed by white extremist groups, which many people would agree, the FBI's Counterterrorism Division has declared that black identity extremists pose a growing threat of premeditated violence against law enforcement. The FBI assesses it is very likely black identity extremist perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated retaliatory lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence, reads the report marked for official use only and obtained by Foreign Policy, which is a magazine. They have a website. I went to the website. It said August 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. The article is by Jada Winter. Sharon Weinberger is the editor. I just want to give cite the quotations and stuff. The August 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri was the catalyst for widespread anger and violence. So Medgar Evers, Malice Green in Detroit in, I think, 1988. All the people, like, before Michael Brown, all the people that's been killed, our people that's been killed by police, they didn't matter, and it didn't have an effect on the trust between our people and the police in our community.
Right.
You know. But
so they say.
So they say. Okay. Was a catalyst for widespread anger and violence, the FBI report says, concluding that continued alleged police abuses have fueled more violence. So the FBI called it, so I guess even though it's on camera, it's still an alleged act of violence.
Right.
Okay, so why are we paying for body cams then?
So we can get more alleged acts of violence on video.
Yeah, with the matching audio,
right.
And and live stream somewhere to a database that they have. Okay, the FBI assesses it as very likely incidents of alleged police abuse against African Americans since then have continued to feed the resurgence in ideologically motivated violent criminal activity within the BIE movement, the report states. Domestic terrorism groups differ from traditional criminal groups in that they take action for a different purpose, to bring attention to a social or political cause, the FBI wrote. Therefore, their existence as a group has a legitimate purpose, at least in part. Their legitimate activity may include acts of protest, advocacy, and civil disobedience. So, protest, advocacy, and civil disobedience is far more a threat to the security of this nation than a guy leaning out a window and firing indiscriminately at a crowd.
Right. We just brought our live radio audience in. The topic today is Cointelpro
2.3.
Yeah. And we're some of the brothers from the Body of Christ Church. 1-877-871-1712. Continue, my brother.
Okay, yeah. So I was just reading some quotations from an article that quoted an FBI report talking about the new threat in America is the black identity extremist. You know, black people had enjoyed a an ease of some sorts after 9/11, where we weren't being paid that much attention to by security at airports and stuff like that anymore. But now the FBI says that, here's the last quote. The FBI says there are domestic terrorism groups differ from traditional criminal groups in that they take action for a different purpose to bring attention to a social or political cause. Their legitimate activity may include acts of protest, advocacy, and civil disobedience. So, not the regular criminal catch. You ain't worried about catching criminal people. You worried about people protesting. And they said that the Michael Brown protest outside of St. Louis started that, which we know that there were several hired protesters there and hired militant protesters, not that were doing acts of violence, and the other black people were just there protesting. But as I read this, I was looking at what could I say out of the scriptures to somebody that looked at this and had thoughts of being a militant or going to a protest, or we got to do something about this.
Right.
What does the scriptures, not what I think, I'm not going to take a word out of a scripture and make a sermon and raise some money out of it.
Right.
We're going to look at what the scriptures say. It's not this brother, it's what the scriptures say. So let's start at Leviticus 26. Because a lot of people, they're getting caught up, like a subtopic of this conversation is like, Trump did this, Trump did that. Trump did that, Trump did this, Trump ain't this, Trump ain't that. Trump, and Obama this and Obama that. It's like, it was 8 years of attacks on Obama, 8 years of defending Obama. Now it's defend Trump and attack Trump. It's like it's no middle ground. It's like people are being drawn to a point where they're at edge and against everybody.
Everybody.
And there's no civil discussion or civilized discussion. It's all got to be about anger and fist waving and all this other stuff.
And part of this problem and dilemma is what you're being told to be alarmed or mad at.
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of the dilemma.
Exactly.
Because now the black extremist groups are the biggest terrorist threat now.
Okay.
As opposed to people on psychotropic drugs that they never talk about, that get guns and kill massive amounts of people. But we can't talk about that because, that's not to be talked about.
That's the limits.
That's exactly.
The limits of debate.
Right.
The stuff you can talk about during the debate on these topics is already set by the puppet masters.
Right.
So there's things that people will say, no, we're going to cut that dude off. We can't.
Right.
Multiple shooters.
Psychotropic drugs, multiple shooters.
Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial.
Right.
So here's the thing. We as the oppressed minority, or we as the people that see certain conditions put upon us that match up to the conditions in the Bible that describe the punishment of a certain people for their sins, have a thing to realize. Number one is what our mother and grandmother used to say: stay out of white folks' business. Stay out their business. They want to go off and do all this and run this and grab them by that and do this and make this guy run and leave the country for the same thing. Whatever. Stay out there, but don't do as they do.
Right.
So let's look at. I got a spot on my glasses here. Let's look at Leviticus 26, and I want to let's read 14 through 16.
Leviticus 26, 14 through 16. But if ye will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that ye will not do all my commandments, but that ye break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart, and ye shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it.
So we know, and we're going to go there, Lord's will, if time allows, that Christ said this stuff would continue until the times of
Gentiles.
of the Gentiles and all this confusion and stuff comes to an end, which is a heartbeat before he comes back.
Right.
So, but the thing is, this was written in like a agricultural style society. Now it even applies because you look at when it says, "You shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemy shall come eat it." So we have these communities, historically black communities. The first one that I knew about, well, it was two. Atlanta, over there by the Georgia Dome. They renamed all the streets and started building houses. Then also in D.C. You know, but those were historically, we wasn't taking care of it. You know, so now people come in and they don't necessarily like us. They want to come in here, extort us, like we've heard stories about people underpaying people for their property and stuff and just moving them out or forcing them out.
The term is gentrification in a lot of cases, but
basically.
it's part of the curses that
he's
talking
because
about.
the stuff that because people sow a seed not in a pastor, but they sow a seed like to buy a house. They put in an investment and invest that time and that labor and stuff. And then who comes? Somebody comes and takes it. What, you can't keep up with your taxes? You can't keep up with your user fee that everybody in the city voted on to, wait a minute. So let's talk about somebody. Excuse me. Not this cough. It's affecting me this morning. I don't know what. But it says if we were to hate these commandments and statutes.
This is what we deal with.
And we would break this covenant. And the scriptures bear out that before Christ came, we had been destroyed the ability to keep our part of the covenant. It was two parts of the covenant. We obey, he bless us. Now, what? We done destroyed it. We disobey, so what? He's still supposed to bless us?
No, he curses us, like he said.
We're not spoiled children.
Right.
You know, so that's what was going to happen. And we'd have the consumption, the terror. So we got a lot of terror going on today even. Okay, so now let's read 36 through 39 of Leviticus 26.
Leviticus 26, starting at 36. And upon them that are left alive of you.
So it was going to be a slaughter.
Right.
You know, it's a bunch of stuff. We don't have time. We're only up here for
And this has been perpetual throughout history.
Yeah, it didn't happen just once.
People.
Yeah. Yep.
And upon them that are left alive of you, I will send a faintness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaking leaf shall chase them, and they shall flee as fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall when none pursueth.
Okay. No, hold on. Let me just say something. This sound of a shaking leaf shall chase them, and they shall flee. What's the ongoing joke about all these horror movies? They wouldn't last 5 minutes if it was a black folk in there.
Exactly.
Go, oh, honey, this is a nice house. I'm glad we bought it.
Get out.
Get out. Okay. Who we selling this to? We gotta go. You know, that it's a joke, but it's true. You know, we get jumpy like that. I remember as a kid, I would be at the Juneteenth in Buffalo, in Humboldt Park, and you hear a little firecrackers and a little noise, and all you see is a wave of people just running here, then they run there. That's how we do.
Right.
We don't really have that confidence, and you can blame it on the government or the white people in general, whatever you want to do.
But it's the curse that was put upon us.
Exactly. You have to see it for what it is. You have to see it for what it is. Read on 37.
Verse 37, in Leviticus 26, verse 37. And they shall fall one upon another as it were before a sword, when none pursueth, and ye shall have no power to stand stand before your enemies.
Stop. So, what is this going to the government
that's oppressing you?
That's oppressing you, that freed the slaves in the southern states that were in rebellion, but didn't free the slaves in the Union-aligned border states.
Right. But then they had to come up with the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. That was supposed to take care of everything, right?
Yeah,
so what the hell did you have to deal with?
But wait a minute. They gave reparations. They gave reparations for that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, no, yes, they did. Wait a minute. They gave reparations for freeing the slaves to the slave owners.
That
to cover their economic loss. The government started a fund. Okay.
And you're going to them
to ask them
to give you relief for your pain and suffering and the things that were done wrong to you. And we still marching and counting on the government because what we just read, we discount and despise and abhor the Most High God who brought us forth.
Exactly.
And that's our problem. So it don't matter how many We Shall Overcome songs you sing, how many candles you light, how many marches, how many Dr. Umar Johnsons you listen to, how many deep comedic speakers you listen to, the Farrakhans, the T.D. Jakes, the Creflo Dollars. None of it's going to change because it's written that these things will be upon us because the one that put them on us is greater than all those people I mentioned. Go ahead, bro.
Hold on. I ain't dealing with that Bible because the white man wrote that Bible.
Exactly.
Hold on. The white man. There's some mysterious. We actually saw his profile and style of dress in Undercover Brother.
The man.
We did see the man. We didn't see his face. But we saw his helicopter and stuff like that.
Right.
You know. But let me ask this. If he wrote that book, why is it not in his indoctrinatory school system?
Right.
It was removed.
Right.
You know, they even trying to remove under God from the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
It had nothing to do with God.
Why is it in this society they're pushing us not to believe in a God at all?
And do
Let alone
everything
the Bible.
and
Exactly.
then do everything against God.
If he wrote the book.
If the people pushing this agenda wrote that book.
Right.
So that's what it's talking about when it's talking about in the next couple of scriptures about pining away in your iniquity. Right. So read Leviticus 26, 37, and then just read straight through to 39.
Leviticus 26:37, and they shall fall one upon another as it were before a sword when none pursueth, and ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies. And ye shall perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands, and also in the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them.
Okay, since people like to state that the dietary ordinances are part of the Levitical law, neglecting the fact that it's also in Deuteronomy, where that book is dedicated to the review 1 month before the children went into the promised land. But that's one of the things that we pine away in.
Right.
We have highest HIV rate, highest heart disease, diabetic type disease, and kidney malfunction diseases, and we're right up there in lung and every other disease.
And we don't understand when we read Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26, that he said all these diseases
will come upon you
because
you ain't keeping the commandments.
Exactly.
Part of the commandments is
the dietary law, the way you eat, the way you live.
Yeah, yep.
That we do everything that goes contrary than what we were instructed to do. And then you got these Hotep Negroes, I'm going to keep it nice, and Kemetic Negroes talking about this yang, about a bunch of mystical systems and so on and so forth, not knowing that it all goes back to the mystical systems that was put on the earth to stray you away from your Creator.
Exactly.
That's the point.
You know, and you know what, these Hotep brothers, I'm going to keep it nice. They talk about people being coons and this and that, but they going back into reverence in a society that had their ancestors slaves. So what are you?
And don't even realize that their ancestors were enslaved by these people.
That they're glorifying.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing, right? The worst thing you can do is deal with people that have been indoctrinated based on the scholarship set up by this world. And a lot of these people, when they talk about the books they deal with and the translations of the hieroglyphics and whatever, where did a lot of that stuff come from?
The white man wrote that.
But this is the problem. They say the white man wrote the book, and this is where they get a lot of that stuff from.
E.A. Wallace Budge, knighted for his service, knighted in a ritual ceremony for his service.
And this is the thing, and they talk about scholarship. And when you deal with this Bible, you're not dealing with scholarship, but you can show where science proves the existence of what? That there is a God.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, bro.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That was a welcome addition. You know, so now people say, oh, this is the Levitical law, and there's this, and it's done away with. Luke 21. Let's go to Luke 21.
Okay.
Because people love to, you know, only their pastor can go into the Old Testament, pick out a verse, and teach about something. But when it comes to, don't hold grudges and don't do this and don't do that. That's that old law. Why you want to be in bondage to that old law when the scriptures bear out that the only thing you can be in bondage to is sin.
Right.
Christ even showed it. You ain't never free. There's some the people were talking about we always been free. We ain't never been in bondage. He said you're a servant of sin.
Right. And they were literally in bondage to who? The Roman Empire at the time. They were
about we free.
We free. But that's how we say. We free. We free. We say we free. We Americans. We free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But when somebody else goes in the Old Testament and say, hey, listen, this is what we're supposed to do, that stuff is done away with. Let's see if some of these punishments and this Old Testament stuff was done away with. Because
didn't you talk about they were going to fall by the edge of the sword when it said in Leviticus?
Yeah, and those that's left of them will be
by their enemies.
Yeah,
not their friends going to
no power to stand. No power to stand in front of their enemies.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So let's leave. We just keep it terse. Let's read Luke. That the brother said never existed. Every time I say Luke, I think of that. Luke 21, verse 22.
Luke 21, verse 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
John 5:39. Search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. 46 and 47. For if ye had believed Moses, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if ye believe not his writings, how will you believe my words? So, okay, we'll let people figure that one out for themselves, because there's no separation or difference between Christ and the Old Testament, except when it comes to the tabernacle and sacrifices and observances of the carnal ordinances relating to the temple, and then also clearing up controversy about some of the ordinances given to them at that time in the Old Testament concerning the hardness of their heart, like divorce. And multiple wives and all this other stuff. You can say, oh, I like her. I'm going to add her to the, that's a no-no. So let's also read Luke 21:24.
Luke 21, verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Okay, so all things written are going to be fulfilled in these days, not one time, in these days of vengeance, going into what the Old Testament, what Christ was telling Moses to tell the people about. Listen, these punishments for your disobedience are going to take place. Okay, and then three things are going to happen here that Christ said. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And they shall be led away captive into all nations, not just North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So those three things are going to happen until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
And so you understand the times of the Gentiles is the times of the other nations, opposite of the nation that he's talking about that's going to go into captivity.
Exactly.
Amongst the other nations. He's talking about one specific nation of people being led captive after they've been slaughtered, in this particular instance, into all nations of people. And this is where those people find themselves to this very day. As captives under the rest of all the nations. One nation.
And it's not one nation as today's terms. You had families and relatives, and then a group of families and related people was often called a clan. And then you had a group of related people in clans, like two clans related to each other. Though when you had multiple clans related to each other, that was a nation. That was a nation. And what he was prophesying here about in verse 20 and 21 about Jerusalem being encompassed with armies, and then this thing is called, if you take, I think it still might be freshman high school history, world history. If you take world history, it still might be. It was back in the day. They call them with Common Core. The people came to America seeking employment in the cotton fields. What? Okay, but it's called the diaspora.
Right.
Okay, so but that actually happened, but the Bible's not true.
Right.
You can't prove anything in that Bible. Okay, but that's okay. And there is a reason the days of vengeance came. Let's go to Isaiah 59. Look at. Okay. Read Isaiah 59 verse 2.
Isaiah 59 verse 2. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear.
Okay, in the New Testament, in 1 John chapter 3 verse 4, sin is the transgression of the law. So read on in Isaiah 59.
Verse 3. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongue have muttered perverseness.
Okay, so what? They named a crime after us, black on black crime.
Right.
You know, but then also we're defiled with blood. That's a conspiracy to murder, basically. And fingers with iniquity. We do all kind of stuff. Backbiting, grudging, destroying other people, even family members. We also will not eat correctly. We will not take care of our meat and diet. And that has an effect on us because those things are commanded to be kept in the Bible.
So, you know, and this is very typical. Like, I'm just kind of glancing at the chatter that's on the Facebook Live. Apparently, there's some Hotep Negro or Negress in the thing. And the people kill me being parrots. He just or she just quoted something about the Nicene Council created our doctrine.
No.
If they understood what we deal with according to the Bible, they would have heard us and they would understand that what we're dealing with ain't got a damn thing to do with Constantine, the Nicene Council, and what you see as Christianity today.
And
and that's just the ignorance. That's the ignorance of our people because they don't have time to what? Hear. They got too much time with foolishness, madness, and garbage rhetoric that don't amount to a dunghill on their minds trying to spout it. If they took a little time to listen sometimes, maybe you might get some insight on what is being said.
Well, you know what? They really should understand the hominoid theory, the out of Africa theory, the eugenics policy.
Oh, wait a minute.
Professors Boaz
Spanish,
and Herskovich
Chinese,
created the fields.
Ancient Hebrew Creole now.
Herskovich and Boaz created the field of African American studies, and E.A. Wallace Budge and the 7 other illuminated archaeologists that were the only ones allowed to see the Egyptian artifacts and translate them, one version for the elite and another version for the public. Bust that.
Right.
Okay, but not understanding that is not understanding an iniquity that separates you from your God.
That's the point.
Okay.
And that's what it separates you from your God. That madness that you've been brainwashed with.
But we're actually glad that you commented because we need to go back to Leviticus 26.
Right.
Because it's going to mention something. Remember, the king of Egypt was scared of Abraham. Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't. That didn't exist.
Abraham was not a king in Egypt.
The white man wrote it up.
He was elevated. He was elevated to the level of a regent, and the king told him don't anyone touch this dude or his wife.
Right.
Research that. Leviticus 26, because we're running short on time. Let's start at 40 and just read on.
Leviticus 26, verse 40. If they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespasses, which they trespass against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me.
Because Hotepology is walking contrary to the Most High. Is following after a translated version, not the original version, of what some people did to destroy our people. Go on.
Verse 41, and that I also have walked contrary unto them,
Yep.
and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity.
That's what we can't do.
They can't accept it.
It's the man's fault. You know, like I said, the dude that we saw at the end of Undercover Brother, it's his fault.
They had guns.
Yeah.
We the powers of the universe out of Hotep Egyptology. But this
They
dude
had
that
guns.
comes Johnny lately on the planet as a nation of people, come out the caves and then conquer a whole massive mind giants over the earth and universe because he had guns.
Yeah, well, the Pucker machine gun wasn't invented until about 77 years before the Declaration of Independence, so I don't know what gun they're talking about.
Right.
Read on.
So, verse 42, then will I remember my covenant with Jacob.
Is that the covenant with Moses?
No.
No, read on.
Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob and also my covenant with Isaac.
Is that the covenant with Moses?
No.
Okay, read on.
And also my covenant with Abraham.
Oh, that's not the covenant with Moses, is it either?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Will I remember, and I will remember the land.
Oh, okay. So now, just read 44 to 46. Just read that right.
Leviticus 27, 26. Excuse me, 26, 44. And yet for all that when they be in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away. Neither will I abhor them to destroy them utterly and to break my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God.
What covenant is that he's talking about? The ones with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob?
Yeah, but then it would have to be realized and re-infused with Christ.
Exactly.
The second covenant.
Read on.
But I will, for their sakes, remember the covenant of their ancestors, who I brought forth out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God. I am the Lord.
Wait a minute. The people Egypt got spoiled.
No, he didn't, because
Egypt got
was great.
spoiled.
No, it didn't.
No, wait a minute.
Egypt was great.
King Tut was the boy king.
Hotep.
Because his older brother was the firstborn that died.
Egypt
and his
didn't
father
get
died
destroyed.
in the Red Sea.
How could the greatest
Okay.
people on the planet be destroyed?
Okay.
Noses
By the
on
Most
their
High.
sphinx get blown off.
Yeah.
And the Most High did something greater than that when he put those plagues on so-called great Egypt. But what are we doing? We putting our faith and trust in what? That. And not the one that destroyed them. We got a minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, read it.
Verse 46.
Yeah, go ahead.
These are the statutes and judgments and laws which the Lord made between him and the children of Israel in Mount Sinai by the hand of Moses.
But we know that Abraham kept those same commandments. The commandments were before Moses and the children of Israel
Right.
at that time. But remember this.
Time.
Yeah, well, remember that. We'll see you next week at the same bad time, same bad channel
All right.
as well.
So,
Body of Christ Repentance Network, www.thebocc.com.